The talk began by one of those present asking, "Can it be said that man possesses immortality?" Immortality is one of the qualities we ascribe to people without having a sufficient understanding of their meaning, said G. Other qualities of this kind are individuality, in the sense of an inner unity, a permanent and unchangeable I, consciousness and will. All these qualities can belong to man. He emphasized the word can. But this certainly does not mean that they do belong to him or belong to each and every one. In order to understand what man is at the present time, that is, at the present level of development, it is necessary to imagine to a certain extent what he can be, that is, what he can attain. Only by understanding the correct sequence of development possible will people cease to ascribe to themselves what, at present, they do not possess, and what perhaps they can only acquire after great effort and great labour. According to an ancient teaching, traces of which may be found in many systems, old and new, a man who has attained the full development possible for man, a man in the full sense of the word, consists of 4 bodies. These 4 bodies are composed of substances which gradually become finer and finer, mutually interpenetrate one another, and form 4 independent organisms standing in a definite relationship to one another, but capable of independent action. The reason why it is possible for 4 bodies to exist is that the human organism, that is, the physical body, has such a complex organisation that, under certain conditions, a new independent organism can grow in it, affording a much more convenient and responsive instrument for the activity of consciousness than the physical body. The consciousness manifested in this new body is capable of governing it, and it has full power and full control over the physical body. In this second body, under certain conditions, a third body can grow, again having characteristics of its own. The consciousness manifested in this third body has full power and control over the first 2 bodies, and the third body possesses the possibility of acquiring knowledge inaccessible either to the first or to the second body. In the third body, under certain conditions, a fourth can grow, which differs as much from the third as the third differs from the second and the second from the first. The consciousness manifested in the fourth body has full control over the first 3 bodies and itself. These 4 bodies are defined in different teachings in various ways. G drew a diagram, reproduced in figure 1, and said, "The first is the physical body. In Christian terminology, the carnal body. The second, in Christian terminology, is the natural body. The third is the spiritual body, and the fourth, in the terminology of esoteric Christianity, is the divine body. In theosophical terminology, the first is the physical body, the second is the astral, the third is the mental, and the fourth the causal. In the terminology of certain Eastern teachings, the first body is the carriage, body, the second body is the horse, feelings, desires, the third the driver, mind, and the fourth the master, I, consciousness, will." Such comparisons and parallels may be found in most systems and teachings which recognise something more in man than the physical body. But almost all these teachings, while repeating in a more or less familiar form the definitions and divisions of the ancient teaching, have forgotten or omitted its most important feature, which is that man is not born with the finer bodies, and that they can only be artificially cultivated in him provided favourable conditions, both internal and external, are present. The astral body is not an indispensable implement for man. It is a great luxury which only a few can afford. A man can live quite well without an astral body. His physical body possesses all the functions necessary for life. A man without astral body may even produce the impression of being a very intellectual or even spiritual man, and may deceive not only others but also himself. This implies still more, of course, to the mental body and the fourth body. Ordinary man does not possess these bodies or their corresponding functions, but he often thinks and makes others think that he does. The reasons for this are, first, the fact that the physical body works with the same substances of which the higher bodies are composed, only these substances are not crystallized in him, do not belong to him, and secondly, it has all the functions analogous to those of the higher bodies, though, of course, they differ from them considerably. The chief difference between the functions of a man possessing the physical body only and the functions of the four bodies is that, in the first case, the functions of the physical body govern all the other functions. In other words, everything is governed by the body which, in its turn, is governed by external influences. In the second case, the command or control emanates from the higher body. The functions of the physical body may be represented as parallel to the functions of the four bodies. G drew another diagram representing the parallel functions of a man of physical body and a man of four bodies. In the first case, said G, that is, in relation to the functions of a man of physical body only, the automaton depends upon external influences, and the next three functions depend upon the physical body and the external influences it receives. Desires or aversions, I want, I don't want, I like, I don't like, that is, functions occupying the place of the second body, depend upon accidental shocks and influences. Thinking, which corresponds to the functions of the third body, is an entirely mechanical process. Will is absent in ordinary mechanical man. He has desires only, and a greater or lesser permanence of desires and wishes is called a strong or a weak will. In the second case, that is, in relation to the functions of the four bodies, the automatism of the physical body depends upon the influences of the other bodies. Instead of the discordant and other contradictory activity of different desires, there is one single I, whole, indivisible and permanent. There is individuality dominating the physical body and its desires and able to overcome both its reluctance and its resistance. Instead of the mechanical process of thinking, there is consciousness. And there is will, that is, a power, not merely composed of various often contradictory desires belonging to different I's, but issuing from consciousness and governed by individuality or a single and permanent I. Only such a will can be called free, for it is independent of accident and cannot be altered or directed from without. An Eastern teaching describes the functions of the four bodies, their gradual growth, and the conditions of this growth in the following way. Let us imagine a vessel or a retort filled with various metallic powders. The powders are not in any way connected with each other, and every accidental change in the position of the retort changes the relative position of the powers. If the retort be shaken or tapped with the finger, then the powder which was at the top may appear at the bottom or in the middle, while the one which was at the bottom may appear at the top. There is nothing permanent in the position of the powders, and under such conditions there can be nothing permanent. This is an exact picture of our psychic life. Each succeeding moment, new influences may change the position of the power which is on the top, and put in its place another which is absolutely its opposite. Science calls this state of the powders the state of mechanical mixture. The essential characteristic of the interrelation of the powders to see one another in this kind of mixture is the instability of these interrelations and their variability. It is impossible to stabilize the interrelation of powders in a state of mechanical mixture, but the powders may be fused. The nature of the powders make this possible. To do this, a special kind of fire must be lighted under the retort which, by heating and melting the powders, finally fuses them together. Fused in this way, the powders will be in the state of a chemical compound, and now they can no longer be separated by those simple methods which separated and made them change places when they were in a state of mechanical mixture. The contents of the retort have become indivisible, individual. This is a picture of the formation of the second body. The fire by means of which fusion is attained is produced by friction, which in its turn is produced in man by the struggle between yes and no. If a man gives way to all his desires, or panders to them, there will be no inner struggle in him, no friction, no fire. But if, for the sake of attaining a definite aim, he struggles with desires that hinder him, he will then create a fire which will gradually transform his inner world into a single whole. Let us return to our example. The chemical compound obtained by fusion possesses certain qualities, a certain specific gravity, a certain electrical conductivity, and so on. These qualities constitute the characteristics of the substance in question. But by means of work upon it of a certain kind, the number of these characteristics may be increased. That is, the alloy may be given new properties which did not primarily belong to it. It may be possible to magnetize it, to make it radioactive, and so on. The process of imparting new properties to the alloy corresponds to the process of the formation of the third body and of the acquisition of new knowledge and powers with the help of the third body. When the third body has been formed and has acquired all the properties, powers and knowledge possible for it, there remains the problem of fixing this knowledge and these powers because, having been imparted to it by influences of a certain kind, they may be taken away by these same influences or by others. By means of a special kind of work for all three bodies, the acquired properties may be made the permanent and inalienable possession of the third body. The process of fixing these acquired properties corresponds to the process of the formation of the fourth body. And only the man who possesses 4 fully developed bodies can be called a man in the full sense of the word. This man possesses many properties which ordinary man does not possess. One of these properties is immortality. All religions and all ancient teachings contain the idea that, by acquiring the fourth body, man acquires immortality, and they all contain indications of the ways to acquire the fourth body, that is, immortality. In this connection, certain teachings compare man to a house of 4 rooms. Man lives in one room, the smallest and poorest of all, and until he is told of it, he does not suspect the existence of the other rooms which are full of treasures. When he does learn of this, he begins to seek the keys of these rooms, and especially of the fourth, the most important room. And when a man has found his way into this room, he really becomes the master of his house. But only then does the house belong to him wholly and forever. The fourth room gives man immortality, and all religious teachings strive to show the way to it. There are a great many ways, some shorter and some longer, some harder and some easier, but all, without exception, lead or strive to lead in one direction, that is, to immortality.